Gay and Lesbian Victory Fund for a number of years. It's a great group of people committed to a single idea that we can change the face and voice of America's politics by simply electing people from our own LGBT community. We can do that and change the nature of the debate in North Dakota, Annapolis, Maryland, Albany, New York, and Washington, D.C. 2012 was a remarkable year. It was our first year with a brunch in Chicago. This is our second one, so thank you for making this one even larger than last year. We're very grateful for that. It's always nice to come to these events where you actually see daylight outside, and we haven't trapped you in a nighttime dungeon. That's for later in different organizations. Also, we can't get enough of your enthusiasm in Illinois. The truth is, you have a tough fight ahead, and we know that you face that, and we don't want to take anything away from that. We know we can help, and we know having more and more out-electeds does help the fight here. It helps it everywhere. We have a lot to celebrate in 2012. We doubled our representation in the United States Congress, and we elected for the first time in the history of this country an out United States Senator in Tammy Baim. Now, many of you will remember me telling you last year, what will it be like to wake up on Election Day and be able to say, we have an out United States Senator. And thank you for your generosity. We sent an email out right after that brunch last year asking you to give to Tammy's campaign, and you did. And I will tell you that being in Madison, Wisconsin on election night is one of the greatest thrills of my professional life. Watching that evening take place and being honored to be the first organization to call the race ahead of NBC, ABC, Fox, Reuters, and everybody else, confident in the victory early on, even before the polls closed, which I got a little chastised for. But it was an amazing thing. And then being in Washington for the inaugural, you know, the whole month of January is basically the inaugural month. And I would tell you that means that nothing got done in Congress, but you know, that wouldn't be any different. So, boy, that just went right over my head. But being there and watching Tammy get sworn into the United States Senate was a really remarkable thing. I mean, all of a sudden, what happened a few weeks later? We were about to have a new Secretary of Defense have to go before the United States Senate to be confirmed, and that Republican was not very friendly to our community when he had been in office previously. So had to swallow those words, go sit in front of now an out United States Senator and say, I support the president, don't ask, don't tell is dead, and we will make sure we fully integrate in the United States military all LGBT service members. LGBT service members. That was a really remarkable thing. It only happened because you supported Tammy Baldwin to be a United States Senator. So this fight is not over. We did get to watch the President of the United States from the inaugural stage talk about gay and lesbian Americans from the stage, from his inaugural speech. Now that's something else that had never happened in the history of our country, right? It was another remarkable time. Now, he did quote the Declaration of Independence. He talked about how we hold these rights to be self-evident, talking about our equality, and then he put the challenge back on us, that we have to continue to fight for this. We have to continue to work for it. While they may be self-evident, they are not self-executing rights. Those are his words. Our rights are not self-executing. So the challenge is laid down by the President of the United States. We can't just sit down and say, this will happen. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. That's never happened in this country. It doesn't happen just because it's a matter of time. It happens because people continue to work for it. Because you're willing to give up some of a beautiful Sunday, miss half a Bears game, and come celebrate with each other and lift your glass to know we have work to do in the future. Now, there's a lot more of that to do. I know some of you are sad you're missing part of the Bears game, and the others go, Bears? But Bears are in the dark rooms at the other events in the evening. Exactly. They see how these things all come together. So, but I do want to talk a little bit about how those rights are not self-executing. and the work we have ahead of us in 2013. You know, we talked about this being the year of the mayor. In Seattle, Washington, Ed Murray came out on top in a primary to be mayor of Seattle at the beginning of August. He now faces a runoff in early November. He could become the first out mayor of the city of Seattle. I think he will. In Houston, Texas, Anise Parker is up for her final re-election as mayor of Houston. Now, talk about, I know for the electeds in the room, you don't really like this, and the members of Congress know how tough this is. You run every 2 years. And being an executive and running every 2 years is even more difficult because you're making these really, these budgets every year that are that difficult for everybody. So Anise is in a tough race for re-election. Finally, as the year of the mayor continues, I'm going to bring you a story from the city of New York. Those of you who were here last year got to hear from Kyrsten Quinn. Now, if that wasn't one of the most uplifting speeches ever given on a stage, I don't know what is. She is an amazing public servant, a wonderful woman, a strong leader. And one of the battles we have in this country, and we haven't quite figured out how to win these battles, is how do you take strong woman and strong executive and pair them up and not let all the other people running against her use names that marginalize her as a candidate. That's exactly what's happened in the city of New York. Kyrsten Quinn has been the front runner. She's been the president of the New York City Council for a number of years. She's made a lot of hard decisions and had to actually cast votes, which none of her opponents have had to do. It's really easy to run against people who had to vote on something when you haven't had to vote on anything. So she is in the race of her life. The election is in 2 days. It's on Tuesday the 10th. What happens in the New York City municipal election, and for those of you who thought last year was an election year and this year isn't, this is what happens. There are many jurisdictions in the country who do odd-year elections because they don't want to be connected to whatever's going on in a presidential year. So they move their elections to odd years. And that's exactly what's happened in New York. So Kyrsten faces these other opponents who have attacked her, marginalized her. She's been the only recipient of an independent expenditure attack campaign. Everybody else has rallied against her. Our community is with her, the women's community is with her very strong, the Latino community is with her very strong. She has a lot of support of labor, but she is in the race for life. So on Tuesday night, we'll know whether Kyrsten Quinn moves on. In that city, if you get 40% of the vote or more, you win. If it's less than 40%, the top 2 candidates will go to a runoff. I just bring you this update from the field to know that our team is in New York. We have a number of people here, but we also have a number of people in New York this weekend, working all the way through Election Day to be with Kyrsten and hopefully celebrating victory with her on Tuesday night. Now, I'm not promising you she'll be in first place. Our battle right now is actually to keep her in second place so she gets into the runoff. Bill de Blasio is going to come in first place right now, it looks like, and Kyrsten and Bill Thompson are battling it out in public polls for second place. We're very confident in Kyrsten's ability as a public servant, and this is what happens if you're a victory candidate. We will not back off our support of you, even when others in the progressive community will say things like, oh, we've done all that. Electing a gay mayor in New York? No big deal. Why should we care what her sexual orientation is? Well, I'll tell you why. Because there's no candidate in New York who would be more important for Mr. Putin to meet when he comes for United Nations meeting than have to work with the lesbian administration in the city of New York. And we can't forget that these folks being in office has tremendous impact. It's not just about the votes they cast in their jurisdiction. It's also about the way they represent our communities. It's about the things they say about us. It's about the way they live their lives. It's about their partners. It's about their children. It's about the conversations they're able to have when they get engaged. It's about the conversations they're able to have about their children. These conversations make us just as human as everybody else in this country and completely change politics in this country. They change the nature of the debate. They change who we are as a community because people are representing us in the halls of power that no one else is willing to stand up and do. We can't do this without our allies, don't get me wrong. We need our allies. But we have to step up. These rights are not self-executing. We have to work hard to make it happen. Now, I'm very grateful that you all are here again. Thank you. I have this prop I'm supposed to use, and just remind you that if you haven't filled this out, those glow sticks are still available in the room, and staff are happy to walk around and collect them. But we love this work because every time we help a Josh get elected in a place like North Dakota, and has never seen an out public servant be willing to step up and run as an out candidate. Every time we support someone like that, that we train them, that we endorse them, that we help bundle money for their campaigns, that we provide technical assistance to when they're in trouble or facing an interesting question about how they should talk about something. Every time we're able to do that, we can only do it because of your generosity. Your generous support is what makes that happen. So thank you very much. From deep in our hearts, we really love this work we do, but we also know we can't do it without you. I get to travel the country and meet elected officials and meet young people who are willing to step up and run for office. We have these wonderful programs where we have victory congressional interns. You know, the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. got rid of their paid internship program. So we went in and filled the void, and we started recruiting young gay people to serve as interns on Capitol Hill. Huge impact it has to all of a sudden have these young people have stipends paying for them to live in Washington, D.C. for a semester and be able to work on the Hill. Congress is a fascinating place. Sometimes it moves at a glacier's pace. Today, they're all talking about what we're going to do in Syria. And most of the discussion is not whether it's the right thing to do. Most of the discussion is all about personality and whether the president did it the right way. Let's talk about something real, right? So the same thing happens in our community. Are we doing it the right way? Are we having these conversations? Sometimes we have a loss in a vote, and then we go attack a Greg Harris. And we turn against each other and we say, you did it wrong. Or we see one of our own run for office and we complain about how they're doing. We worry whether Christine Quinn coming in second or third is going to put a black mark on our community. You know what? These are the people who are brave enough to stand up and run for office. We should never shirk from supporting their willingness to run as an out, gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender person in this country. Why does that make a difference? Why is this momentum having an impact? It is momentum, right? We haven't reached victory. Yes, a lot of people thought after the Supreme Court decision around DOMA, we were done. Oh, it's going to happen. We don't have a lot of heavy lifting to do. Well, you know, to the lesbian in Mississippi who's afraid to hold the hand of her partner as she walks down the street, this is not done. To our trans brothers and sisters, this is far from over. And to the young gay man in Kansas who was told by a statewide elected official, if you want equality, move to San Francisco, this is far from over. Everything we're doing is finding a path for public service for LGBT Americans. Everything you're doing to help us changes the nature of politics in this country. And we try to bring to you, when we put these programs together, people who demonstrate that to their fullest. It is now my great pleasure to introduce you to somebody who does just that.